About 500,000 years ago, our planet was in the grip of another ice age. The continents were already positioned much as we know them today, but the climate and environment were vastly different. Despite these harsh conditions, the ancestors of modern humans continued to explore and settle new territories. This was the era when Neanderthals flourished, a species of humans that, at the time, showed no sign they would vanish hundreds of thousands of years later, overwhelmed by a more adaptable and advanced competitor. As we know, an ice age isn't just a long, unchanging freeze starting at the poles. Instead, it consists of cycles of warming and cooling within certain temperature ranges. Between 500,000 and 20,000 years ago, glaciers in Europe extended well beyond the continent's midpoint. The North American ice sheet covered half the continent, reaching almost to the tropics along the Mississippi River Valley. Ice thickness in Scandinavia and parts of the United States reached up to 4 kilometers. A similar situation prevailed around the South Pole. These massive ice sheets profoundly influenced the climate far beyond their immediate regions. As a result, vast areas were dominated by tundra, forest tundra, and semi-deserts. Tundra stretched across what are now Central European countries. Present-day France and Germany were sprawling grassy plains dotted with sparse forests, which reached as far south as the Mediterranean coast. This period marked the heyday of the so-called mammoth fauna. Around this time, the steppe mammoth finally diverged from the southern mammoth and began spreading across Europe, Asia, and North America. Huge herds of large herbivores also roamed the tundras and forest steppes, including woolly rhinoceroses, bison, various horse species, and deer. Predators were abundant too, with many types of big cats, wolves, and bears. Meanwhile, the ancestors of humans known as Neanderthals emerged from Africa roughly 600,000 years ago. Following the periodic retreat of the glaciers, their populations expanded steadily northward and eastward. Until recently, Neanderthals were thought to be an evolutionary dead end, with only Cro-Magnons, who appeared around 40,000 years ago, considered our true ancestors. With the advent of genetic research, it became clear that the DNA of many modern human populations contains Neanderthal genes alongside those of other ancestors. Physically, Neanderthals were better adapted to the harsh conditions of their time, but they lagged behind in technological and cultural development, which ultimately cost them the survival race. Nevertheless, their lifestyle, culture, and other characteristics remain of great scientific interest. On average, Neanderthals stood about 165 centimeters tall. They had robust skeletons, with muscle mass roughly 40% greater than that of the average modern human. Their skulls featured low, sloping foreheads and prominent cheekbones with strong jaw muscles. Their noses were broad, shaped to warm the cold air they breathed. Distinctive features included heavy brow ridges and a small chin. Their necks were short and thick. The structure of their vocal apparatus indicates they were capable of producing coherent sounds, so it's certain that Neanderthals could communicate with each other. Some researchers suggest they may have lacked facial hair, though this hypothesis has yet to be definitively proven. An interesting theory about Neanderthal movement was proposed by researcher Karen Steedle-Numbers. He argues that because Neanderthals had shorter, stockier limbs, their stride was shorter than that of Cro-Magnons. This meant they expended more energy walking and performing tasks with their arms and legs. Neanderthals obtained food through hunting and gathering. Their diet primarily consisted of meat, nuts, and roots. DNA studies revealed that the gene responsible for digesting lactose was turned off in adulthood, meaning they could only consume milk during infancy. It's generally believed that adults began drinking milk from various animals only after the advent of dairy farming. Before that, milk was almost toxic for grown humans. Neanderthals likely lived in small clan groups of up to 30 individuals. They actively used fire for cooking, firing pottery, and crafting tools. Contrary to popular belief, they did not live in caves. Archaeological evidence shows their camps were usually located in open steppe areas along migration routes. Near caves, they might have built shelters from animal skins, wood, and bones. They entered caves only briefly, seeking refuge or performing ritual or cultural activities. For example, caves were sometimes used as burial sites for their dead. A large number of cave burials have been discovered across Europe and the Near East. One notable and well-preserved example comes from the La Chapelle-aux-Saints cave in France. There, in a shallow grave, a human skeleton was found curled up in a fetal position. Nearby, traces of food and flowers were uncovered, believed to be burial offerings. Another famous Neanderthal burial was found in the Shanidar cave in Iraq. The grave contained the remains of an adult male, around 40 years old, a considerable age for that time. What made this burial particularly remarkable was the large amount of flower pollen discovered alongside the body. Researchers remain divided over the meaning of this pollen. Some interpret it as evidence of a ritual, while others suggest it might have been part of a medicinal treatment aimed at healing the man. Despite ongoing debate, scientists have yet to reach a consensus on whether Neanderthals practiced any unified religious beliefs. Grave goods are almost entirely absent from their burials. Many graves are located right within their habitual living areas. Some scholars even propose that these burials often belonged not to kin, but to enemies who had been killed and perhaps even eaten. When it comes to Neanderthal culture, reliable information is scarce. At one point, they were credited with inventing the first musical instrument. Archaeologists uncovered what's known as a bone flute, a fragment of bone with 4 holes. However, some argue these holes might simply be hyena tooth marks. Still, there's nothing to stop a particularly musical Neanderthal from producing sounds with such a bone, regardless of how the holes got there. Beyond this, no other clear evidence of Neanderthal-made musical instruments has been found so far. Neanderthals used simple wooden spears and clubs as weapons for hunting and warfare. They did not possess any projectile weapons like bows or slingshots. Roots were gathered using specialized digging knives. For making ornaments, they employed basic drills. These decorations most often consisted of animal teeth, claws, or shells. So far, there is no reliable evidence that Neanderthals created paintings or sculptures. All supposed art objects or signs of a distinct culture have turned out to be speculative attempts to fit the findings into preconceived answers. However, it is well established that Neanderthals had some understanding of medicine and cared for their fellow tribe members. Many skeletons show clear signs of effective treatment for fractures and other injuries. It is also known that elderly and disabled individuals lived among them, possibly assigned lighter tasks suited to their abilities. In short, Neanderthals had every prerequisite for developing a more advanced society. Yet the harsh laws of evolution prevented them from moving to the next stage. Perhaps human history would have taken a very different course if these beings had won the survival race instead of our direct ancestors. We thank all viewers who watched this video to the end. To learn more about the development of life on Earth during other ice ages, we recommend checking out other videos on our channel. You'll also find plenty of fascinating information about the creatures that inhabited our planet across different eras.